evening or good afternoon. The sun's still shining out there, isn't it? I'd still be outside if I wasn't working I was at home. My neighbor accuses me of gardening by street lights some days because it never gets dark at my house. I live in town. And so anyway, I'm Debbie Dillion. I'm the Horticulture Extension Agent. I see some new faces here tonight. We're so glad you're here. You're in for a treat tonight. We've got Miss Kristyna Culp. She's been a master gardener since 2019. But not only is she a master gardener, she's a master naturalist. She's the director of the Habitat Builders Wildlife Chapter in the Marvin area. She has a certificate in native plants from University of North Carolina, Charlotte Botanical Garden, and more. She's also a founding board member of what's a new group, Trees Union. So she just is a full-time volunteer, and she's an awesome person. She knows her native plants. She has lots of hands-on practical experience with her hands in the dirt. So she's going to talk to you. You know, you don't get soil underneath your fingernails, you get dirt, right? So Kristyna, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. It's good to see all you guys, and I think there's a few out there too. Make sure they can hear. So originally, this was supposed to be the top 10 native plants, my opinion, right? So, I mean, you can't hold me to, well, you can't hold me to it, but I'm not writing a book or anything. But, well, it's a long story and you'll see. I'm going to keep it to the top 10 because attention deficit disorder. And we do need to focus a little bit, but then I have more because I felt bad about leaving out some friends. And then when that was done, I felt bad some more. So, okay, she's not happy with me. Okay, it's not wanting to do its thing. Hold on. Of course that worked before. Okay.
I'm going to turn these front lights off because our pictures will look so much better.
So the first question is, and most of you already know the answer to this, probably why you're here. Why are we even talking about native plants? And there's a couple of, what is a native plant? The easy answer is the plants that were here before Europeans invaded, showed up and started bringing their kudzu and all that other stuff. And the reason that's important is because we have a lot of animals, all kinds of animals, that co-evolved with the plants that were here first. They did not co-evolve with kudzu. They co-evolved with those things, all of those things. And so the more native plants you have, the more of those animals you get. And I usually say that the entry drug is butterflies, right? And nobody ever said, oh, I don't like butterflies, right? Nobody ever said that, or bluebirds. Nobody said that. So that's almost all butterflies. The other reason that I do it is because it's kind of lazy gardening, right? I mean, they grow really well. There are some picky ones. I don't grow those. So, but they grow really well as long as you put them in the right place, like all the other plants. Okay, so how did I decide the top 10? Well, not very well, since I ended up with like 25, but whatever. I tried to find things that were easy to grow, relatively easy to maintain. I mean, if you're used to growing roses, all of this stuff's easy. That they have pollinator value. There are actually some native plants that don't really support much. They're very specialized, or they've just kind of evolved separately. Still not a bad thing to have, but these are not those. They have a longish bloom time. They're not huge, because I can give you a whole lot that are like, most of you do not live in places where you can grow those plants. I love plants like that. Relatively easy to find, meaning to purchase. Mostly deer resistant. And then I give you alternatives, just in case you can't find whatever we're talking about. So there's the top 10. It's beautiful. We can talk Latin. I'm going to show you pictures because nobody wants to read that. Because I made a list of things, and I will post this on the website this weekend. So if it says this is full sun, part sun, and shade, because I've got a couple of those. Dry, moist, wet, clay is okay. Nobody loves clay, but some of them will tolerate it more. Shallow soil, which have some of that. Rocky, shallow, where it's been construction and stuff like that, and it's still got stuff that'll grow in there. Well drained, everybody loves this. Drought tolerant, but with a caveat, right? Nobody's drought tolerant year one. And then good drainage, everybody wants that. All the plants want that. Okay, who has this in their yard? Yeah, this is one of the easiest plants to grow. And honestly, if you weren't going to do anything else, why am I holding this? Because it doesn't work. If you're not going to plant any other native plant, that might be your best one. It blooms for a long time. I've actually seen blooms on it, here and there, even in the winter sometimes. It's odd, but it happens. It's got this nice little rosette kind of thing going on. You get a lot of bang for your buck. Don't buy a bunch of them, just buy one, because if you've got some time, you'll have plenty more. But they're easy to move. It's not like, it's not like they're taking over, knocking on the door. They do like full sun, but they will take part sun. They'll handle that okay. And they'll handle, so far I haven't found any kind of soil they won't grow in. But they probably prefer a moist kind of to dry place. But Nancy and I were just talking, I've got them growing along a dry creek bed of mine, which is kind of mucky soil on the edges. And they put themselves there. So they seem to be fine even in that kind of cold, wet clay. I already said you have to thin them and move them around if you want to. Or you can leave them where they.
Sorry, honey.
The wildlife value is high because of the long bloom time, so lots of pollen. And the deal is with these kind of flowers, the head of it, the little brown spot, is actually the flower part. That's where the little flowers are. You can get right up. The zinnias are like that. You get right up there and see that. The petals are not really where the action is. And it will bloom on and on and on in that little cone. And so it lasts a really long time. They stay relatively small, really easy to find. And there's lots of different versions of them. So they're pretty easy to find. Actually, if you just have a neighbor that has some, they'll give you some. I have to put this in there because this is the plant that supports monarchs. Pretty much everybody knows that. This is the better behaved version of milkweed, Asclepias tuberosa. It stays about 2 feet tall, right? It doesn't really clump up. It kind of moves itself around a little bit by seed and everything. But it's not easy to transplant because it's got a taproot on it. It blooms a pretty good long time, like spring and summer, but not like Rudbeckia. It's relatively easy to find. Deer don't want to eat it. And it has friends. And I just watched, I don't know if any of you guys watched a presentation we had a couple of days ago about monarchs. And this guy had done a ton of research on which milkweed do they like the best. And they actually like Incarnata and Tuberosa the best, not so much that really tall stuff. So Incarnata is swamp milkweed. It's pink. It's really pretty. So any of those are good. PSA, this guy up there at the top, and I have been guilty of having it before I knew. That's a tropical version of milkweed, and it's a problem because it blooms at kind of the wrong time for monarchs that come through here. But it also stays green a lot longer. It doesn't die back in the winter, which seems odd that it's tropical. But it doesn't die back, and so it's very confusing for the insects. And it can cause them to lay eggs when they shouldn't, and it does not support our monarchs here very well. So don't buy that. If you can tell the difference, it's like the outside petals are red and then it's orange in the middle. And it's kind of tall and lanky looking. So be on the lookout for that because you can find this and somebody may tell you that it's native because it says Asclepias at the beginning. It's not. Okay, we all know that we're not supposed to plant mint, right? We plant it in a pot. That's okay. This mint you can plant in the ground, especially if you have really crappy soil that kind of contains it. Pygnanthemum, there's all kinds of varieties, and I have them all. They are fantastic plants. Some get taller than others, so you can look into what kind of height you like. But I have planted them in some of the worst soil I have in Union County. We got some bad. It's rocky and dry and all that. They're doing great. They're not trying to take over if it was spearmint or something. They still do smell minty. That keeps the deer away. But the number and variety of insects that land on this plant and all of its friends, it's amazing. You could just sit out there and look at mountain mint all day and see the world come by. It's just amazing the different kinds of insects that come through there. It's relatively easy to find. you'll find this is the bigger leaf. There's a smaller leaf. There's this variety, Lemisi, is really lower. But there's all different kinds. Definitely look into that one. You can still grow it in a pot. Okay, coral honeysuckle. We all, if you have any tiny, even a tiny piece of property, you probably have the bad kind, right? You have Japanese honeysuckle. That's a little baby. I took a picture of it so you can see, well, this is what it looked like 2 weeks ago anyway. And you'll see those little starts if you've got woods, they're there. But we also have a native honeysuckle, and this guy is that. And I heard somebody years ago say, they're really hard to tell the difference. I don't think that's hard to tell the difference, but whatever. I have found that the more of the Japanese honeysuckle I take out of the woods, the more of the American honeysuckle comes in. I've got way more of it now than I did 5 years ago in the same spot. And this is what it looks like. I mean, it's just amazing. There is a cultivar that Debbie gave me. She hacked off some at her house, and I thought, this will never live. It's awesome. Major Wheeler will bloom. I've had it bloom 11 months out of the year. It's just amazing. And it grows in, I've got it in a pot of all things. Yeah. So it is a fantastic vine to grow on an arbor. It's going to look good year round. The deer do like to nibble it a little bit. So she says, does it get woody? Yeah, the base of it sort of does. But the top of it is going to have all these great thin bluish kind of leaves on it. And then it's going to bloom a lot. Especially if someone would give it a little more dirt, soil. Yeah, me. It does need a strong, I'm glad you mentioned that because it does need a strong arbor. It's kind of a hefty plant. It's not like some of our vines that are kind of, thin and everything. That it needs a good strong arbor. Or you can use it to just be a ground cover. That is growing in the woods. So clearly, not only will it bloom, but it'll grow in the woods. It's probably part sun there, right? But it likes, you can see, moist, well-drained, tolerates clay, of course. Oh, that's an X, so we don't do that, right? We don't want that. So has anybody heard of this plant? Antennaria plantagenifolia. Have you heard of that one? I mean, it just rolls off the tongue. Of course you have. So we have one hand up. So I found this growing in the woods. I'd never heard of it before. Me and iNaturalist were real tight, so I figured out what it was. And because it's really cool looking, I started moving it around, see where it'll grow. In the woods, it was in the shade, in a wet area, so where water was kind of running. So I thought, well, I knew it will grow like that. Well, I've put it all kinds of places. I haven't found a place yet that it won't survive. So it's just the coolest little plant. Right now, as we speak, it's doing this business where it's got maybe stalks, what's that, half a foot? With this little, it looks like the bottom of a cat's foot, right? Pussy toes, that's how it gets its name. And then those kind of die back, and that's the end of that. But there are certain specialist butterflies that really like it. And I use it as a green mulch. So does anybody do green mulching? Yeah, so low-level plants instead of mulch everywhere. And it looks very different. It's hard to get your eyes used to that. But it really looks great. It's a tough, tough plant. And the deer don't want anything to do with it. Now, it's a little harder to find. That's the only problem with that. I was fortunate enough to just find it in the woods. But I do know that I think Lisa Tompkins might have some at Carolina Heritage Nursery.
Celtic herbs out at
Okay, so
farmers market in Charlotte.
Yeah, Celtic herbs and you can find those in Yorkmont's, Charlotte's farmers market. Yeah, good. That's good to Celtic. Yeah, I like the group of humans. Midland, South Carolina, in Stanley County, right? So I wanted to put on the top 10. I wanted to put something to eat. Unfortunately, I have a feeling that the humans don't get to eat much of these. It's more the birds, because I swear they're just sitting there waiting for them to turn just the right shade of pale blue. Poof, they're gone. And I figure if the birds don't get them, the deer do. But still, they're native. They're really good if you can get a hold of any. Obviously, different heights because there's different varieties of them. Deer resistance. No, we know this. And they need a low pH soil, which most of us have for good or bad. And there's different varieties, and most people, there's so much information about blueberries on NCSU extension website. You could spend the rest of your days reading about blueberries, so I'm not going to go crazy there. But one of the things you might think about is an alternative that has got the best common name, sparkleberry. And it grows like a tiny little tree, and it has these little tiny leaves that, God, I hate to even mention this, but they sort of look like a crepe myrtle. The only time you'll hear me talk about that. And they're just all over my woods, little tiny ones, tall ones, and they have little white flowers on them and little tiny berries that I have never gotten the chance to eat because I'm never going to get a hold of those. But they are beautiful plants. And I've never seen them for sale, but then again, I have not looked for them either. Look for sparkleberries. Vaccinium arboreum, maybe? Yeah, that would be a good plant. And so then I wanted to add something in here for fall because, you know, we finally get through, around here, we get through the summer and things start blooming again, right? And one of the best things, we're all going to say this together, Symphyiotrichum, see, oblongifolium. See, you can do this. There's not one that's longer than that one, right? So,
No.
yeah, thank you for mentioning that. That is how I've learned how to say these things. So if the plant toolbox is saying it wrong, well, we're all saying it wrong together, right? But yeah, and I'll just keep punching it until I get it right. But it's still hard. I mean, look at that word, for goodness sake. These guys really do look like that. They bloom like crazy. And there are plenty of versions, right? Some are taller than others. Some are bluer than, let's face it, they're purple. More pink, whatever. And you may even have some asters. That was their original Latin name, by the way, asters. We could all say that. You might even have some asters that just kind of grow in your yard. They're probably frost asters or something. They're heath asters. They're white, but they're fantastic. The pollinators love this thing. It's fall blooming. So really September, October, even into November, right? This thing will just be blooming its little brains out. It's pretty easy to control. I mean, clean up. I was looking at it today. It's starting to put its leaves back on, but the stems are kind of disappearing from last year. It's not a lot of work. That one's pretty easy to find. The deer don't bother it too much. And it's got lots of friends to try out. All of those are great. Don't make me say this one. Ooh, yeah, I'm not going to say that one. I don't know how to do it. But do check the height. If you don't need something that's this tall, some of them get super tall, like, 5 feet tall. Just check that, and then some of them are lower. So this is a great fall one.
So someone is asking, it says the aromatic aster?
Mm-hmm, yeah. And so that's what a common name is, but you know how common names are weird. They're just about useless sometimes. That's the way you don't have to say Symphyiotrichum oblongifolium. But I don't think it really smells that much.
Someone else is asking, do you plant this now or in the fall?
Either. If you plant it now, you're going to have to pay attention to it a little bit more, right? Well, I wouldn't do it now. I would wait until after frost, whenever that is, mid-April. But you're going to have to pay attention to it a little bit more. But most of the time, it's better to plant perennials in the fall for you because you don't have to baby them so much. I had to put solidago in here. That's goldenrod. If you have any amount of land, you probably have some canadensis. That's the stuff that gets super tall. And yeah, let some of that go. And yeah, I curse myself every time I go out there and pull some more of it because it is aggressive. But man, do the bees love that stuff. I have seen, like on a head of it, no bigger than your hand, 20 bees. And they're just crawling all over each other trying to get a hold of that stuff. So any solidago that you can tolerate, please plant. It is the best plant. This is fireworks. Probably more people have that than any other kind. It's got a nice shape to it. It's very contained and acts sweetly in the garden. We've got some in Marvin Eford Park. It has never made babies. So it is definitely not pretending to be. Canadensis cousin. There's a bunch of different kinds. Canadensis and Altissima can be very, they are aggressive, but man, they're awesome looking. They get big. This is pretty easy to find too. Stays kind of, clumpy. Wildlife, huge value. And this is going to start blooming before the asters do. So you've got kind of a nice bloom time there between those two guys. Okay, how many people have heard of carex? Okay, more than the Antonaria. Yeah. So carex, there are native versions and there are, almost said unnative versions, and exotic versions. But we have tons of native versions of carex. Was mowing the grass today. Okay, it's not grass. Was mowing the stuff that we call lawn at my house. There's no grass in it. And there were, whichever one that is, I think it's spicata. Little tiny ones blooming. They look just like that, but tiny in the grass. I had to stop. It took me 30 minutes to do the grass because I had to dig up all these little plants. So those are growing in my lawn, quotes. This stuff is amazing. There's versions that will grow literally in a swamp because I have one of those on my property. Grows just fine in there. There's some that grow in the higher areas that are dry, in the rocks, in the clay, nasty new construction clay, lawn, all kinds of stuff. Wide leaved ones, skinny leaved ones, just fantastic. Some bloom now, some bloom later. Every variety you can imagine. They're a little easier to find now than they used to be. Izell is working with Hoffman Nurseries, I think they're called, and they have a lot of variety that's available. You'll find some information on North Carolina NC State Plant Toolbox, but I think there's still more varieties than that they're even showing yet. I mean, they can't show them all. These are some that you can look for. Various heights. Some of them get this big. I mean, like, especially if you gave it some decent soil. And then some of them stay really tight and small, like a little mound. So they're just great plants. I use them as sort of filler because I don't want to see soil. So if there's a little piece of land, stick a little carex in there. So they are a great thing to look for.
You know what wildlife?
So that they've got a seed on them. So some of the birds will eat some of the seeds, but some insects too will deal with the pollen. But it's more grassy-like, so it's not as huge of a pollinator kind of plant, but it's a great cover plant too. No, deer won't. Thank you. They will not touch them. Deer resistance high. Yeah. They won't touch them, and I don't know why. I mean, it doesn't look. It's not fuzzy. Doesn't smell. Okay. So I'm a big fan, and we'll talk about this in a minute. I'm a big fan of what I call tall grasses, native grasses, not turf grass, not a fan. And this is the most well-behaved, lowest growing native grass that we have around here. And it's called love grass. Come on, and it's purple. I mean, what's not to love? So, yeah, that's funny. I have just started growing this, so I don't have as much, I don't have any pictures, and I don't have as much experience with it. But I got some plugs from Ella Marsh. I shoved them up in a kind of a dry bed, it's a little hillside, and so some of them are actually coming back up. So birds like to eat the seeds, little creatures like to live in there, all kinds of things going on there, but it stays here. That's unusual. Most tall grasses want to do this. And it's relatively easy to find. I've actually seen that at Lowe's, the big box stores and stuff. Not sure I'd believe it, but there's probably some variety of it. But anyway, it's a pretty plant, and it's nice because you can, especially if you can get the sun behind it, like muley grass, you get the sun behind it. Oh, it's gorgeous. So that's a good choice too, to fill in some spaces. Okay, so that was the 10, and this was supposed to be the end. So don't forget that you got to still plant it in the right place, right? And sometimes they'll plant themselves, and then they'll tell you where the right place is. And sometimes there's a multitude of right places. You can try things out. I would suggest you don't bother to fertilize these things. Do not treat them like tomatoes. They will get huge and actually floppy. Their stems will get floppy, and they're not used to that. They're used to kind of growing on this tabletop, frankly. I believe that you should plant lots of them together, close together. That's what nature does. Think about, You don't see a plant over there by itself. It's always got friends around it. It causes something called root competition. And you would think that that's a bad thing, but it actually makes the plant stronger, which is kind of counterintuitive. But especially those tall plants, the more there are, the stronger they are. It's almost like they support each other. Who has heard of Chelsea chop? Yeah, so I learned the hard way about that crazy goldenrod. Literally, I'm telling you guys, it was 8 feet tall one year. And that just looked like crap because it was in the front yard. So that wasn't a good idea. So somebody told me I should just hack it back. And so, I mean, I did. So early June, oh, it's awful. I just cut it back and it stayed right here. Now it's still trying to take over the world because that's what it does, but it stayed nice and low and the bees did not care up here, down here. So that works for a lot of things. Joe Pye weed, Eupatorium, we'll talk about boneset. Cut leaf coneflower, I assume it works for that. I'm going to find out this year because I got some of that out of hand too. In general, this is true of all plants that bloom. The more sun they get, to a point, the better their bloom is going to be. Yes, ma'am.
Joe Pye.
Mhm.
Mine gets real tall. When, I don't want to lose the bloom.
I know. So I haven't tried it with Joe Pye because I just let it go big, but I would cut it in June. If there's, I mean, that's when I did goldenrod and they bloomed sort of the same time. There's also smaller Joe Pye weed, right? I've got some that grows naturally on my place. It doesn't get any bigger than this. Now the soil is terrible over there, maybe, but I'm not moving it. It's little. It's cool. But yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, and the reason that butterflies like that head is because they don't have to go hopping from place to place, right? They can stay right there and hit all those little pollen spots. Yeah, exactly. They can fight it out. Yes, ma'am.
So when you, that Chelsea chop, is it a technique? Is it a just?
You just cut it down. Yeah, you cut it down. It's like cutting your hair, right? And it's painful to do. I did it earlier for the goldenrod than I really thought I would need to, but didn't work before that. So
And you cut it down top line.
about a foot. I left it about a foot. So you're topping it sort of like you do tobacco. I did it with cutters so I could have a cleaner cut. But if you got a really good hedge trimmer, yeah, and a whole lot of I wouldn't mow it. I wouldn't do it that way, right? And unless there's some way you can mow higher, right? But yeah, that'd be cool.
I always think you're gonna get more leaf and more root and that.
But it's still gonna, yeah, and it's gonna keep it lower and stronger stem too.
Okay,
Try it.
I might try it with one or two.
Yeah, do that. I want to know what happens if you try it with one or two. That's great. Okay, so I did my top 10, and then I felt bad because I left out half of my friends. I left out a whole lot more of my friends. Like I said, I added these, and then I left out more friends. It's never ending. So here's some more. I'll do these faster. We've got this in the teaching garden. I found this great picture. This is the exotic version. This is the native version. Native version's got way bigger leaves. It doesn't tend to have as many berries on it, and they're not as vivid purple. I got to give it to the exotic version. It's pretty cool looking, but man, it will take over your life. It will grow everywhere, and it is often sold. This version right here and that one are often sold as native. No, they are not native. Only the Americana. Pretty easy to remember. It can get pretty big. I read just the other day, and I just went out and did this. You need to hack it back to about a foot tall. I got one that had to be 8 feet. Hack it back, you'll get more berries that way. It blooms and makes berries on new growth. So do that. It said late winter. It got done 2 days ago, but whatever. It tends to grow. I found it in the woods. I found it in sunny spots. It's going to do better in the sun. It's going to need more water, but that is a great plant. It is deciduous, so it's just going to be, little sticks. Oh, I love this plant. So this one, you can buy little bulbs, right? Like at Pikes or wherever, and throw them in a pot, and you have this. Unfortunately, at my house, deer think that this is fun to eat this. But architecturally, that Liatris is just the most beautiful plant, right? I don't think you could make a better plant. The bees love it. Butterflies love it. So it's a great pollinator plant. It gets pretty tall. You want to plant it in a clump because one of those, that's one plant. You kind of want 5 or 6 or 10 or 50, whatever, around. They want full sun. Moist to dry soil is fine. They're okay in the clay, believe it or not. And they're a little bit later. I don't know about fall. That's what NC Plant Toolbox said, but I think it's more summer, for me anyway. And here, yeah, variable on the deer resistance. And you do know that deer can be, they'll all eat hosta, right? They'll eat hosta no matter what kind of deer they are, but some of them get picky about, some of them will eat liatris in my house and they won't eat it at yours and whatever. That's just to make me mad. That picture's bothering me, but it's along a sidewalk and it's on a hill. It's hard to get that picture. But anyway, that's Coreopsis. It's blooming right now, a little bit, just starting. There's all different kinds. I didn't put varieties. There's tons of different kinds of Coreopsis. It's all awesome. It's an early bloomer because we don't have a lot of stuff blooming right now. Some, but not like it will be in a month or so. That little piece of land up there is construction grade red clay that is just nasty, right? It's just awful soil. It's dirt. And that little guy has done fine. I think that's mouse ears. And I can't remember the genus on that. But it stays really low and it spreads. And it's made a couple little babies here and there, but nothing major. The deer are not going to walk on the sidewalk yet. So they haven't gotten to it. So I think it's okay. I did add some lance leaf Coreopsis, which is taller. And it can be a little pickier, I've heard, but we'll see how that goes. But it's bigger. It looks like that, but like on steroids. But it's a great plant. This may be, and this is how the second round of favorites started because I didn't have this guy on there. So this came with the house, not the butterfly, but the Eupatorium. And I think it's serotinum. It gets like this big, like this. It's got beautiful leaves on it. I have some that I swear to you smells like copper tone suntan lotion. And I've made other people come and smell it. All of it doesn't smell like that, but some of it does. I have seen all kinds of crazy stuff on here. That's a purple hair streak. They're pretty unusual. He's a little butterfly. But it is a fantastic late bloomer. It's white, and I didn't used to like white flowers, and I've gotten over that. It's just a tough plant. Yeah, it moves itself around a good bit. The Perforatum is probably a little better behaved, and that one's the one you're going to find for sale. And it is pretty too. It does the same thing. It blooms, I guess, technically in the fall, August on. So it's a nice late season thing, and it does get big. I should try Chelsea chopping that too, but it's not in the front yard, so I don't care. I haven't seen deer bother it at all. So if you need some of that, you just let me know. I'll get you some. Stochezia. Peachy's Pick is the one I hear everybody say. That's what that one up there is, probably what all of them are. Those are the same. Look, just the day is different. It's more, the color is actually kind of in between those two. But there are pink ones, white ones, and purple ones. And they're a smooth leaf. They're called Stokes aster, but they're not in the same family, clearly. They seem to do okay in part sun, but they're going to like sun more, full sun. They get about this big, and they have a nice shape to them. They bloom a long time. There's a cool looking flower, really. I haven't seen deer on them. There's hardly any maintenance because it all kind of dies back and then starts all back over again. And you can find plugs for those. I should have been saying this all along. A lot of these you can find plugs for, and that's the way to plant. That's just the easiest thing in the world. Okay, we got to say something about, Luann and I were talking about ferns earlier. A lot of people have shady yards. Lucky you, right? Because that means you've got trees, and trees are fantastic. We have all kinds of ferns that are native here. NC Plant Toolbox, 31 or more native ferns for our area. I mean, you should have some ferns. No reason to plant autumn fern if all of these things are available. This one just showed up at the base of my house. It's this big now, and it's starting to put on. I think it's a shield fern. And the Christmas ferns are almost, they stay green, sort of. I don't want to say they're an evergreen because they look kind of crappy during the winter, but you don't lose them. Most ferns are just like they're gone, and you're like, I wonder where that fern was. Those you'll know where they are. And they're starting to put their little fiddle heads up right now. And they'll get like big, but they like to be in the shade. I'm trying to grow some in pots right now, just at the front of the house because it's shady there. I can't grow okra like you do. It looks really cool. So far it's okay, but I don't think it's happy in there, but we'll see. Yes.
Question. I think we're going back inside. Can we find most of these in nurseries and so fast that any place you can you recommend find them?
I have a slide in just a minute that's going to talk about where we can find things. Okay. But there are loads of different kinds. You can see the height differences because like ebony spleenwort is tiny like this, but it's beautiful. And then cinnamon ferns are, and I think some of them, if you had better soil, they would get super big. I mean, it's not the Pacific Northwest. It's not gonna be like that, but they're really awesome. And they do not like them. Deer do not like them. I've got ostrich fern and cinnamon fern growing in the rain garden in full-on sun. Yep.
Water is the only place I can go. I brought them from Ohio.
But in sun, yeah, in the sun, yeah, they don't mind. And yeah. Everybody knows columbine, probably. This is the native version. I just think it's the best. It's really hard to take a picture of because here's the little mound of really pretty leaves. And then, if this is the ground, then the stalk is like this, right? And shade, but you don't get the shade when it's blooming now. It's not really shade. It's kind of dappled, whatever. This, and I made a note of it so you didn't think this is the dead part. That's a copper colored heuchera growing in the middle of it. I don't know why. I don't even know where that is. That's an old picture. But it's a good, really early bloomer that's easy to find, relatively easy to find. I have tried to grow them from seed, and they're kind of a pain to grow. They take a long time to germinate, and I feel like they just all died in there before it happened. But it's a very early spring. I haven't seen deer munching on them either, but I mean, I should never say there's high. Monarda. Most of us have grown the red kind, and that's Didyma usually. Jacob Klein is your best bet there to not get mildew because, humidity, it gets all mildewy and stuff. But it smells so good with or without mildew, who cares? It smells so good, and it kind of likes to creep around, right? But it's a beautiful plant. And the things that I have seen growing on there, of course, the Japanese beetles, you can't see it, but way up there, there's a Japanese beetle hanging out there, but I can get rid of those. But lately, I've been growing fistulosa too. And it's the same shape and everything, but it's pink. And I've got some of that way back, probably, I don't know, 100, 200 yards from the window that I sit in when I work. And I could see that flower all by itself. There was just one that bloomed last year. It was that bright. It was just such a bright, cool pink. And it smells just like the other one. It's a great plant. They get pretty tall. I've never tried to cut them back because to me, 4 feet's not too tall. So I don't know if a Chelsea chop is a good idea there. The deer don't like it because it smells weird to them, I guess. But those are great plants, really high pollinator value there. And this one's hard to find, granted, but a Georgia aster, if you can find it, buy it. It has the aster flower, what's that? 3 inches across? That color, I didn't make up that color, that's real. I think it might want some support where I've got it. I don't think it's getting enough sun, so I've moved it around to some other places. It's pretty easy to propagate. It's a beautiful plant, later summer and fall, but it's just gorgeous. It's worth it if you can find it. I've only seen it the one time I bought it, and then I propagated it and made new ones. The deer resistance is pretty good on it. I do think it would like more sun than it's getting at my house, but it will grow and bloom in part sun, probably getting 6 hours. But it gets a little tall. See, I'm looking at these going, and there's another one of my favorites. This guy will grow, I've never bought any of this stuff. I mean, although I've heard you can get plugs for it. Blue-eyed grass is actually an iris. It's not a grass at all. It is a beautiful, beautiful flower. It's going to start blooming pretty soon. If it hasn't already, I just haven't seen them yet. I've got some where I've treated them really nicely and they're getting big, but they're about to pop. It's just a beautiful plant. And it's going to stay green the rest of the year. So it's a nice filler thing. There's little tiny ones and big ones and whatever. There's white ones, which was disappointing. I mean, you know, purple. But they'll get about like this. And like I said, I've heard you can find plugs for these, but I'll bet you've got some in your yard right now. You just stop mowing around them and stick them up. I haven't seen deer much on those either. You've seen these at the beach, right? Gaillardia, like in the dunes, but they grow here too. And they're super tough. They can handle dry. And so I had to throw something in here that can handle full sun and dry, kind of, you know, hell strip kind of stuff. They stay low. They spread around a little bit. It's in here with some later blooming coreopsis because it blooms later. And the deer don't want any of it either. Okay, this is my PSA about tall grass. Because while it's scary, I love it. This right here is called, well, Dr. Mellichamp called it sugarcane grass, but it's actually Erianthus saccharum, I think it's called. It is 10 feet tall. It is amazing. You see it on the sides of the road, and probably most people go, oh, that needs to be cut down. I think it's gorgeous. And when the sun hits behind it, because the sun goes behind that right there, oh, it's just awesome. This is a panic grass. And it spread itself around a little bit. It gets really big too, and it's not because of fertilizer, it's because of grass. That's only 2 plants, but you know, a bunch of little babies in there. So I have broom sedge, I have little blue stem, I have the panic grass, several different kinds. Some of it is lower, some of it's higher. And then the sugarcane grass, all of this stuff, it looks fantastic, I think. We are living in what used to be the Piedmont prairies. And that is exactly what you're envisioning right now is exactly what it used to look like. A whole lot more of that than we're planting now. These grow with forbs, the blooming type of plants, really, really well, and they look really good together. The other thing about these, so they want to be here, kind of the way I see it. The other thing is they have a really long root on them, even in clay, better than nothing. And about 1/3 of that root dies back every year on purpose. And what is that doing for your soil? Right? It's adding organic material back to your soil. So I've found that things that I plant near the grass does better than things I don't plant near the grass, right? Now, is the HOA happy with this? This is the front. They were unhappy for a moment. I talked them out of it and then I ignored them, but I was able to do that. That doesn't always work. The rest of this is in the backyard today. The mullet garden, right? Party in the back. But that, I just think that tall grasses are something to look into if you've got the space for them. If you don't have the space for them, then muley grass is lower. Everybody's seen that pink stuff. And the love grass is lower. And then some of the panic grass stays more like 2 feet tall. And so it's worth looking into. They're really tough. The deer do not want any piece of them either. So finding plants. And see, these are ones I didn't talk about. I'll put their pictures up here. But anyway, so this is one of the reasons we did this class right now, because the season is upon us. It's coming soon. So the plant sales at UNCC and Winghaven, and be on the lookout for the one at McDowell Nature Preserve. I've never been to that one, but they are having it this year, I heard. We're having a plant sale here on the 26th. Central Piedmont has one, but there's not a lot of native plants there, but still worth helping them out. Farmers markets have some good native plants. North Carolina Native Plant Society has a great nursery list. Wild Ones has a great nursery list. Then Izell Plants, if you were at our symposium, you might have met them. They have things in plug size. We're going to plug the plugs. Our soil is not fun to dig in, right? Does anybody enjoy that? I do not. Who wants to get an auger out to plant, your plants? So get plugs. They're like this big and this deep, and with a garden knife, in they go. The only way to plant 200 things at once. Joyful Butterflies in South Carolina, they have some interesting variety, but both Izell and Joyful Butterfly have some great information on their websites as well. And then Carolina Heritage Nursery, we've already talked about Lisa. She's on Facebook. And then one of my friends pointed out that Facebook, one of the good things about social media, there has to be something, as there are plant swaps. So, you take all your extra rudbeckia and trade it for, whatever you can find. And just you can keep looking for those. I know there's a lot in Charlotte. There's some, the library has them in Charlotte, things like that. And so that's free stuff. So you're asking that one, you want to know about that one, don't you? Robin's plantain is the one right there in the middle, this one right here. It's a little ground cover. The resources here, most everything came off of either my experience or NC Plant Toolbox. And if you have never been to the NC Plant Toolbox, stop what you're doing and go. Because there's a wealth of information out there. I mean, talk about a rabbit hole, is that what you call it? Yeah, rabbit, yeah. But a good, healthy one, because you're talking about plants. The pictures that have a title on them are from there. And that's the other good thing. If you're putting a presentation together, you can rip some pictures out of there really well. Okay, so we had 10 whole minutes. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
I think their plant sale is the 11th and 12th and 10th.
Perfect. So it's the same time as the UNCC one. I will put that on the slide before I post it, but I better get on it at 9. So I'll post it. I'll try to post it tomorrow. It really, that's why that says that.
5-ish maybe plants, different varieties from last year.
That's good. They'll probably have more this year. That's usually how that
You
goes.
have to- Don't be discouraged if you get there and you don't know where you're going. Watch for other people.
That have that green look in their face.
I didn't find it, but I was kind of like.
And it's for a good cause too. I think it's going to their camps and stuff. So that's awesome. I like to support them. That's a good one. But it is hard to find information about it.
It is the 11th and 12th of April, 10 to 4. If you get there right at 10, like some of us are like,
Yeah.
they're going to be sitting up still if it was like last year. So.
Well, UNCC says you can't come in early, and yet people are over there. I got all my plants ready. How'd you do that? Okay. Any other? Yes.
I've got a daughter in grad school. But what kind of plants do they have?
UNCC?
Yeah.
Oh, they have the best. That's probably, if you go in one place to get native plants, that's the place to go. And go ahead and get a membership so you can go the early day, because it'll be worth your money if you're really wanting to get particular things. Are they cheap? No, I don't mind saying that. They probably wouldn't be shocked that I said that. But it's a great place to get started and then learn how to propagate, right? But they have a great variety, and they'll have stuff that you weren't planning on buying, but
It's clearly marked.
Yep, yep.
There's lots of people that ask questions.
Very good point. And they usually post the plant list well ahead so you can plan your attack, because you will need to be ready. Help us out. I'm not kidding. It kind of becomes a free-for-all. I have no idea what's available the second day. Yeah, seriously. It's worth becoming a member.
Some things will sell out
Oh.
the first hour.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying. You can't go in there early. Yeah, right. Okay. Whatever. Other questions? Do you have any?
Oh, plant list is out now.
Oh, the plant list is out. Yeah, that is like candy right there. Yeah. I mean, and they do it, but they'll tell you where the native ones, which ones are
But it's
native.
not- Get there though, it's not listed by native plant. They're alphabetical, but they're shade and sun, and the list is not shade and sun.
No.
So it's. start
They're just,
Googling.
they're trying to keep you on your toes, and keep the plants alive probably,
Great sale.
but it is good. Any other?
Take something to carry it in.
Yeah, take a truck. What are you talking about? Take a truck. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
It's worth it.
No one's ever been there. Winghaven is also good, but I go to UNCC first and then I go to Winghaven. But oh dear. Okay, so maybe you go there first. It just depends. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they usually have them on different weekends. Yeah. That's a good point. Good point. Good point.
If you're gonna add adventures in herbs.
Yes,
To your list.
I can do that.
She supplies a lot of the Winghaven plants. She grows them.
Oh.
And that's where most of them go.
So Adventures in Herbs is another good one I need to add to the list. And I think that is where I got my native strawberries, which word to the wise, do not plant in good garden soil. I mean, you can, but if y'all need any, they're free at my house. They're nearly knocking on the door. More questions? You got any? Yes, ma'am.
Native, is it under landscape themes?
I think it's
Under themes.
I think it's plant type. I think it's under, oh, sorry. When you're looking at the, thank you. When you're looking at the NC Plant Toolbox, how do you select for just native plants? And I think it's under plant type. Yeah, so it's where you can click for grass or fern or, yeah, or perennial or whatever. But you hit native and then you hit grass and you would get native grasses for, but make sure you put zone 8A because whether we like it or not, that's where we are. And the Piedmont, because zone 8A and not Piedmont is different than Piedmont. And you will get inundated with options. The other thing that I check on there is I pull off weedy and thorny and things like you're just not going to want. Stinky. Why do you want stinky plant, right? I mean, why would you want that? Unless it's maybe a pawpaw, and I don't think I can smell that. So. But yeah, so there's some other things to exclude. Yeah, so that's a good place to look. Because narrowing it down, who needs 30 different kinds of ferns to go look for, right? I mean, yeah, that's overwhelming. Yes. She wants variety. Hey, why not, you know? Variety, you know, I didn't talk about that. But I didn't talk about variety, but that, you know, we make fun of people who have one plant of this and one plant of that, but really the animals kind of like all that variety. So it's not a bad thing to have a bunch of different things. It's not
I've kind of learned, I've done a lot of that, one of these and one of these. But I don't know if it's gonna grow in my house. So if I can get one to grow,
then you go get some
then
more.
I'll go back and I'll.
So Luanna's doing experimental gardening. Yeah, no, I mean, and you're not wrong, right? I mean, I'm sort of doing the same thing. I find something in the woods, let's put it over here in the sun and see what happens. Okay, it died. We're not gonna do that again, but I still got my little stash over here in the woods. Yeah, that's how you find out. Yeah. Anything else? Are y'all ready to go to a plant sale? I feel like I'm like selling drugs or something, really. I'm not, no, it's next weekend. You got a week to plan. The plant list is out. You need a week.
But be forewarned that just because it's on the list doesn't mean it will actually be there. So don't be like punching people out because you don't have it. There are
caller.
not there. Let you know.
So she's talking about the UNCC plant sale, and so the spring one is the bigger one, even though the fall one should be the bigger one because that's a better time to plant. But it's not nearly as many people show up and not nearly as many plants. But that's the one to go to. But yeah, so there's a long list, apparently 14 pages long. I'm saying this for them, and it's worth doing your homework. But you're right, there might have just been one of something. They don't give quantity.
Well, and sometimes they've been like I have a list and I'm like, okay, where is this? It's alphabetical, I can't find it. And so you just ask somebody, hey, where's the, and they're like